I'm not going to marry her until she's perfect, knowing that she cannot be perfect until we're married. And in order for me to help her become perfect, I need to achieve perfection myself, which cannot be achieved without the commitment and the loyalty that comes with marriage. So therefore, I'm not going to marry her, and therefore she's not perfect.
If you married her before she was perfect, that you had to overcome that fear, and you did. What was the fear, though, for you? Welcome back to the I Wish You Knew podcast, the podcast that shows you how to build the relationships you've always wanted. I'm your host, Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist, and with me, as often, is my dear friend and co-host, Andrey Korokov. Andrey, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. Good to see you again.
Everybody out there, I want to share some very important news that Andrey has cleared me to share. He has gotten married. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you. That is true.
Andrey, you are living every woman's dream out there in our audience right now because they want to find an avoidant man who will love them forever, commit to them forever, and stay in love with them forever. And your wife has achieved that dream. So every woman watching this show right now is thinking, how the hell did she get this avoidant man to 100% commit and dive in and then stay this in love, right? You're here, you're smiling, you're happy. There was the wedding. I was there. I saw it. In this episode today, I need you to answer for these women. How did you fall this deeply in love? How did you make that choice to become married? How are you staying in love every day? Let's talk about it. Sound good?
Let's do it.
Can you just take the intellectual hat off and give real, honest answers today?
I'll do my best.
Beautiful. What was it that made you commit to that woman first? What about her? Give me her characteristics. Number one, who does she have to be to earn that love from an avoidant man?
Well, she was really ethical. So she had a very particular set of principles. She was very clear about who she wanted.
Good. She
told me exactly what her vision was.
Okay.
And when I told her my vision, she said, yes, this is exactly what I want to do. And that our alignment was like on point.
Okay.
And I said, okay, so for me, there's some non-negotiables. And the non-negotiables were absolute and complete loyalty, right? So that goes without question. Authenticity, like you really have to give me your best, right? And I need to see who you really, really are in order for me to fall in love with that person. And while commitment, you actually have to commit towards changing and evolving and growth, right? We have to figure this out together. So this was a whole ride or die conversation. We were on the same page with that from the very beginning. And that's what kind of led me to ultimately test it out. And when I saw that it was true, I just said, heck, what else am I going to find? Come on.
Okay, so a lot of women out in the audience, and when I coach them, they walk into the relationship, into dating, and they feel like they have to appeal to every man out there by watering down their vision, by not laying their ethics on the line first, and not having strong boundaries. They need to be yielding, soft, and basically blink. And they're trying to appeal to everybody. It sounds like that is not what you were looking for at all.
Nope.
Okay, you're looking for the opposite.
Correct.
Okay. What would you have done if a woman had walked in, if she had walked in without any of those features?
I'd leave.
You would leave.
Boring.
Right.
Because there's nothing there for me. There's nothing for me to connect with. Ultimately, if all you're doing is looking at me and you're saying, who do you want me to be? And you have no personality, it's boring.
No personality is not interesting.
No, absolutely not.
So it doesn't make a low maintenance woman. It makes someone you're not going to connect with.
I would actually like to have a high maintenance woman. I like to have somebody who engages and, you put energy in, you get energy back. I want to have that flow. A lot of women make the mistake is that they just try to buy affection. They try to buy affection from the start by either saying, let me be who you want me to be. And then in return, you're going to get me something. Okay. Or I'm going to act like a high value woman, act like somebody who dresses up and does all her hair and whatnot. But you're going to have to compensate me for that with consistent affection.
Gotcha. So this is how you fell in love with her in the first place. And I remember that. I remember you telling me how amazing she was right off the bat. And then there comes the dreaded 6-month cliff where avoidant men fall off the dopamine cliff and you either make the jump into oxytocin bonding and vasopressin, or you don't, and the relationship
Yep.
dies. What was it that helped? What did she do that helped her clear that dopamine cliff where you properly landed in the oxytocin vasopressin?
Those three things that we talked about,
Yes.
the loyalty,
Okay.
right? The authenticity
Mhm.
and the commitment were fantastic.
Okay.
Ultimately, yes, the dopamine cliff hit, and it was just, confusing, right? It was confusing because I think we had a conversation about that as well.
I
And I called
remember
you
you
and go, I
calling
have
me,
no
yep.
idea what is happening and I don't like it.
Yes, I remember that conversation.
Yes. So here's actually the big thing that I want to highlight here. This is a good story for the woman back home. We withheld intimacy until after the wedding,
Mhm.
right? So this is not about jumping in and, like throwing sex and everything you have at your disposal into the mix just to trap the man. This was actually really about building the connection without the physical part.
If she had added sex into it, what would that have done for
I
you?
would have probably been gone.
So actually withholding the sex, but for an ethical reason,
Yep.
not just to withhold it and say you don't get any, but this is my ethics, these are my values,
Yep.
and this is what I'm sticking to, that actually attracted you more.
100%, right? Because what am I saying I would have been gone? Because it wouldn't have been the same person. Like the same person doesn't say, hey, I'm going to be committed loyal for life, but I'm also going to use your neurobiology to trap you early, right?
A lot of women are afraid if they don't give sex to an avoidant man fast, that he'll just find it somewhere else. It sounds like you might have actually taken it as a challenge. Do you think that's a normal avoidant man
Not
thing?
a challenge, no.
No.
Like I actually look at it and said, everybody else gives sex away.
Ah.
You actually prizes because you see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture that you have is that you actually understand that it is a foundation for deep and intimate and authentic connection that you can't just give. That was the thing. She had things she didn't just give away, not to anyone else, but especially not to me,
Mhm.
right? She couldn't be played. She couldn't be tricked. And I didn't want to it and didn't want to get into that. But the fact that she had that boundary from the beginning, that was attractive. The fact that she had that boundary and she actually held on to that,
Ooh.
now that was the real proof that it was authentic.
Okay. Now, avoidant men usually watch people go through tests. I'm sure you guys had tests. Every couple does.
Everybody
And she
does.
held to that boundary routinely, continuously. You knew
Yep.
that she was consistent.
Yeah, and there was a vision. It was a vision. She said, hey, this is something that we're saving. This is something that we're building. And that is something that can come when the time is right.
Okay.
And the time has to be right in order for this to work properly, in order for the connection to be there. And I know enough from our work together to not want to mess with that system. I was actually very careful with my own neurobiology, and you talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So that I actually didn't build the wrong association using the wrong system.
Quick question for the women in the audience. Many of them are already intimate with their avoidant man, and they're probably
Sure.
listening to this going, oh, I screwed it up from the beginning. She has, miles ahead of me. It'll never work. Do you think, just gut feeling here, don't go intellectual. Do you think that if a woman pauses in the middle of the relationship and explains, my ethics have shifted, I believe this will change for us, and I'm going to make this choice. I would like to make this choice to pull back on the physical and then dive deeper into understanding each other. Do you think that could work for some avoidant
I
men?
don't think that's going to work almost for anybody.
Not going to work for
No, I
anybody.
don't think it's going to work for anybody. And the reason why is because you already are who you are in that relationship. I think if you instead have a more honest conversation and say, hey, I was very anxious
Mhm.
and I think we kind of rushed this part,
Okay.
but that's okay. We did rush this part. I would like to do this differently rather than simply saying, I'm going to have sex with you because, I feel like you leave me without it. I would say if I was a woman, well, I only want to have sex when we're actually feeling bonded and close to each other. My level to which we need to have this has now elevated because we both deserve better.
Mhm.
So I would rather have less of it, or I'm going to tell you more of what I want or don't want, so our quality can go up. And I need us to know we're proceeding towards a relationship.
You said earlier a higher maintenance woman, and this sounds like what you're talking about
Yes.
is having expectations, desires, goals.
Higher maintenance, make me spend time on you. For God's sake, this is the thing that women miss. They try to be initially, or they attempt to be perfect and completely independent, but also cared for. If you are independent, how on earth can I care for you, right?
Mm.
This is the challenge. One of the things that was great with Annalise is that she had certain things that she needed help and support with, and she was open about it, and she was open to receiving feedback, open to learning,
Got it.
open to, being led. And then there's some aspects she was doing the leading,
Okay.
right? And that was a good balance.
There are a lot of women out there that when I try to teach them about vasopressin, they say, well, so I have to solve problems with him. What do I do? He doesn't let me solve problems with him. How do I do it? Do I cook for him? Do I like get the oil changed in his car? What do I do? What did she do that led to that deep hormonal trust that you began to experience for her, that jumped that dopamine gap? What did she do? What were some activities you went through or experiences that she pulled out?
Every man wants to be a leader and a teacher, ultimately, if he is in his proper masculine self.
Agreed.
Right? They want to be that. Now, every man might be a bit different. Maybe there's a guy who really likes, I don't know, music or carpentry, and that's his thing, and he can teach you that. Maybe he's great on some things, but not on other things, and he's not great at taxes. Don't come to him for help with your taxes. Ask him what he can teach you that's valuable. So for Annalise and I, a big thing was more in the spiritual, the personal development space. I mean, I've been in the personal development space for the last 8 years, working with you, working with Jordan Peterson, working with a bunch of other coaches. And I love that stuff. I love the personal development space. So we shared that passion. We had a lot of deep conversations. She asked for my opinion. And what's better yet, this was the most attractive thing. She actually took my advice. Ooh, I know, right? So we actually talked about something and she did it. And I just went, I'm like, that's hot.
That was hot to you.
That was hot. And I'm like, I like that. Why? Because we have something to do together.
Forward progress, motion. She's improving. She was actually showing. So you said she was committed to personal growth herself. She was showing you that she was going to do that.
She showed me that she enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Right. Here's the thing. People can pretend. And this is the authenticity part that misses, right? They'll go, I don't know, BMXing, karate, freaking whatever, like Star Wars video games, just to spend time with their partner. And they hate it.
Oh.
They fake it. And you're not going to fake it till you make it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you guys don't have anything connecting you and there's no passion, then just you're not meant to be. Sorry. Right? And you have to find somebody who actually shares that authentic vision. We both are interested in family, spirituality, personal development. So those 3 overlaps give us a lot to talk about. And I love that.
I know that a lot of the people watching this show right now have had attachment issues for their entire life. That's why I want to invite every single one of you to check out my attachment repair program. It just might be the jump that you need to go from insecurely attached and lonely and frustrated to fully secure, connected, and bonded in a great relationship like nothing you've ever felt before. Check out my website, adamlanesmith.com, for the attachment repair program. Okay, so we talked about what helped you fall in love with her. We talked about the sex component as well and how to handle that if somebody's out there in a relationship already or lack thereof. We talked about how she jumped the dopamine gap and really established the hormone.
We didn't talk about that. No, I didn't give away the best secrets yet.
Okay, well, go ahead, please.
Okay, well, here's the thing. When I hit the dopamine gap, that sucked.
Yes.
Right? Because ultimately the same pattern, and you talk about attachment patterns all the time, the same pattern kicked in and said, well, we did not fully, deeply, immediately, and perfectly bond, so this is therefore doomed. Right? And that was the thing where I was just like, I don't know what's going on.
I remember the conversation.
Yeah. And I go, it's almost like everything seems different. It's almost like my vision is changing. It almost feels like, like my brain is changing. And then I had to go back to very simple principles. This was actually the secret. I went back to our first conversations. And in my first conversations, when we talked about our principles and our vision and what we're looking to build, I said, was that real or was that not? Very simple. For me, I'm a spiritual guy. I go, was that from God or was that not? Because if it wasn't, then what the fuck have you been doing for the last, 6 months? Right? That's not ethical. That's not right. And if it was, then what the fuck are you complaining about? Really, it's as simple as that. You have to have that very basic conversation. So that ability to make decisions and commit to them, which is something that men practice in other areas in business.
Absolutely.
And, at work and the gym, that actually plays in your favor. So I don't know what hormone that is, but that ability to say, you know what, let's cut the nonsense. What was it, yes or no? And if it's yes, then you're going to keep going. And if it was no, then what have you been doing? That was a great conversation for me to have with myself.
Fantastic. That's a lot of testosterone, to be honest with you.
Was it? Yes.
It is. Yeah, you got it leaking out of you. But that testosterone is, look, I'm tired of the crap. I'm cutting through and I'm pushing in. And a
Yeah.
lot of men struggle with that because they have low testosterone, but they even live a low testosterone lifestyle or a low testosterone mindset. So you had that where you could push in. But, and here's what's fascinating, you didn't question her values. You saw that her
I
values were
questioned
true.
my values.
You questioned your own. That meant you were vasopressin bonding with her and she had proven her values to you. This is crucial because a woman has to state what her values are and then prove and demonstrate them
Yep.
to earn that trust.
That was the secret sauce. And
Yeah.
the secret sauce said, I said to myself, she is 100% pulling her end of the bargain. She moved states.
Mhm.
She went from Florida to Arizona. She took care of my child. She drove her to school. She picked her up. She cooked, she cleaned, she did everything. And I said, she pulled her end of the bargain. Now is my time to uphold mine. And that's when all of the character aspects that I've been building myself over the span of my life really kicked in and saved my ass, frankly,
100%.
from the dopamine crash. Because I said, you know what? I'm going to outlast the dopamine thing. Eventually it'll repair.
Okay.
But I'm not screwing this one up.
Yeah, I remember talking about it with you during the dopamine crash and then afterward falling you're rebuilding back upward.
Yep.
Because prior to that, it was, whoa, Adam, I'm feeling so many fluffy feelings. My chest feels all light and I'm so happy. And then the dopamine crash of, I don't know what's going on. I got to figure this out. And then back up into, no, this is right.
We know what works for the dopamine. Go to the gym,
Yep.
get sunlight, get your supplements. Right? We need to get a supplement line going for you, Adam, ASAP.
Yes, I agree.
The avoidant cure.
But a big part of it also was that you didn't just internalize everything. You came and talked to me about it. You actually said, Adam, I'm having this thing. You're married. Talk me through this. What does this look like? And I was able to tell you, look, bro, you're going to get through this and it's going to be awesome on the other side. This is a dip.
Yep. I had a couple of people I went to. There was a couple of times I talked to you. There was a couple of times I went and talked to my friend Mikhail. And I go, Mikhail, I'm being extremely retarded at the moment. Please help me fix my brain. Right. And it wasn't because there was anything wrong. It was just more I could feel it restructuring. It's like that breakthrough effect where something changes and you go, ooh, I have no idea what universe I'm in at the moment.
So factors I'm hearing so far for the women at home. Again, the woman came in with strong values and was very clear about them.
Yep.
Good boundaries and expectations right up front, very clear. They weren't pretending she didn't have them. Very clear. She proved them over 6 or 7 months. She also did a lot of bonding with you and helped support your
conversations,
family. Right?
Joint activities, a lot of vasopressin, that shared interest.
I heard a lot of caring for you, helping your family, helping your daughter.
Of value.
Massive vasopressin. And I also hear a factor in there of the avoidant man had people he could actually speak to about challenges instead of boiling inside his own head alone.
Oh, that would have been the end of it, right? Yeah. Because here's the thing. Let's play it back. You said, what would have happened if she did sleep with me? I said, I'd probably be gone because it wouldn't be any different.
Right.
Nothing there in that relationship would have been any different than any other relationship I would have had. What reason would I have had to stay? So for the women that actually are looking to become the one, what makes you different is actually the question you should ask. Not what makes you the same as every Instagram girl out there or a movie star or whoever is your idol. We don't want that. That's not interesting. What makes you interesting is the question.
What makes you more fully yourself? Vibrancy of a woman is the most attractive thing she can have. Vibrancy, ethics, loyalty, those are things nobody could ever
And that
replace.
doesn't change. That gets better over the span of life, right?
Correct.
There's such a common mistake that girls have. They think, I'm going to dress a certain way or I'm going to, make my boobs bigger or whatever the heck they do. And they think that's the attractive part. That if you have the nicest butt, you have the nicest body, you have the nicest hairdo, you have the nicest manner, you have the most fun, whatever, that's going to be the thing that actually holds you. Well, it's not going to, right? You're going to age. Your body's going to change. Your energy level is going to go down. Wait till you get pregnant and then get grumpy and then we'll really see. But your ethics just get so much better over this period of time, right? But that's based on you being able to welcome somebody into your life, receive feedback, and have curiosity. Curiosity and drive, those are attractive.
100%.
To avoidant men especially.
Absolutely. Well, and to myself as well. My wife and I, we had our 5th child, very briefly here. We had our 5th child and she came to me recently and she said, I've had 5 kids. I don't look the way I did before. What can I do? What do I need to do to be more appealing to you? And I said, be more of yourself.
You know what is hilarious? So you just came to a wedding just a couple of days ago and we were taking pictures in the morning, just in a hotel. It was really nice, nice photo shoot. And you guys arrived for your pictures, and then it kind of scampered off somewhere. And then I kind of in the corner of my eye see motion, and I turn and I see your son kind of just like jovially like dashing through the hotel. And right after him, I could just see your wife just prancing through, like hair flowing, like blue dress waving, and she just gallops past me and I go, that is why Adam finds her attractive. And it was exactly that, is that vitality, the spiritual component, the presence. Everything else right now is so fake.
Yes.
That something that's real is like a gem.
The joy, when I married her, the joy in her heart was what drove me to want to be with her more than anything else. Joy, ethics, spirituality, all of it, yes.
Okay, so how does a woman actually bring out joy in herself to make her attractive?
Quite honestly, nervous system, manage your nervous system, self-regulate, get rid of trauma components. That's mandatory because that cuts down your ability to feel that joy. But then finding the pieces of yourself when you say, when I am married, most women are trying to reverse engineer. When I'm already married, what will I be doing in my off time? What will I be doing when my husband's at work? What will I be doing in evenings when I'm apart from him? What would I invite him into? Most women are not inviting their man into anything. My wife gets to share those moments with me, and I love sitting and listening to her times and watching her do her crafts or anything that she's doing. The
Nice.
fullness of her is what I enjoy.
I like it when my wife disagrees with me.
Yeah.
To me, that's hot. I'm
is,
just like,
kinda.
all right, let's go.
Right? With full respect. When she's fully respectful, but her thoughts...
Disagreeing doesn't mean mean.
Absolutely. And she's bringing those thoughts forward, and you get to have a real debate with a human being.
Yes.
It's awesome.
I'm Russian, and in Russia we have a saying, no is the beginning of the conversation. In America, it's the end. You hear no, and that's it. Feelings are hurt. You just pack up your family and move 600 miles that way.
Yeah.
For us, like, no, I'm like, oh, this is great. Let's do it.
I love this.
This is fun.
So we've talked about the dopamine cliff. What was it that led you to say, yes, I want to marry this woman? Because I remember when you called me and you said, I've picked up a ring. I remember that. What was it that led to the, I'm going to marry this woman?
Honestly, it was still just the same conversation internally. It's like, well, what the heck are you doing? Right? That you've gone through your tests, it's not even wasn't tests. Like, you guys have both shown commitment to this. So what are we doing? It's not going to get better until you make it better, was the internal conversation. I think it's a mistake that most men make. And this is actually a mistake that even more women make. They wait until they're ready. And they, even worse, tell their man, it's okay, you don't have to, do X and Y and Z until you're ready. It's like, hold them to a standard, hold yourself to a higher standard, right? And do something about it, because it's so much more exciting.
I agree with that. I had a coaching client last night, actually, who said, I bought the ring and I picked it out with her, but then I just couldn't give it to her because it felt like she wasn't hitting my targets. But then she was, and then she was hitting them too well. And I was really concerned that she was faking it. So, he made her wait years before he would give her that ring. It sounds like what you're saying is, no, buddy, look at the ethics, make the jump.
Of course. But the jump is the whole point. Can you just think about the logical loop, the fallacy that happens inside an avoidant man's head? I'm not going to marry her until she's perfect, knowing that she cannot be perfect until we're married. And in order for me to help her become perfect, I need to achieve perfection myself, which cannot be achieved without the commitment and the loyalty that comes with marriage. So therefore, I'm not going to marry her, and therefore she's not perfect.
What was the fear? And don't intellectualize, emotional. What was the fear if you married her before she was perfect, that you had to overcome that fear, and you did? What was the fear, though, for you? She will transform into a horrible version. I will settle for less. I won't be happy. What was the fear?
I think it was just always just like, we're not going to be happy together. We're going to be disappointed in each other, right? Here's the thing. I actually am vehemently against the feeling of disappointment, right? This is actually a recent conversation we've had. And I believe that every time you feel disappointment in a relationship, it's an opportunity, right? And disappointment only comes when that opportunity is abandoned. You walk away on each other. You sweep it under the rug. You say, this is as good as it gets. I'm like, that's ridiculous. It shouldn't be as good as it gets. You don't have to nail it. You don't have to get it right. But all we can do instead is go out and say, okay, hey, you know what? I have an example from yesterday. Been working 12, 14 hours lately, just for the last 16 weeks, 12, 14 hours. I am brain dead, burned out on caffeine, and just basically just completely exhausted, but it's worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go for a walk. And on the walk, I'm just like dead. I was very unhappy with myself as a result of that walk. And then, we come home and, I can sense that it didn't go well. I could sense the disappointment.
Right.
And I go, what was missing from there? What wasn't there that should have been there? And, that kind of sparked over time. It wasn't even immediate. It was that evening sparked a great conversation. And in that conversation, I said, disappointment is basically us doing little mini betrayals, micro betrayals, right? And that's the thing that people need to stop doing. If there's a problem, voice it. If there's a missing need, voice it. That's an opportunity to develop. You're not going to be perfect for the next at least 20 years. Think about this as if you're launching a spaceship and you need to launch a spaceship from Earth and you need to go to, I don't know, what is a far star? Your stars,
Alpha
right?
Centauri.
There we go, Alpha Centauri, right? And the distance is like 50 trillion gazillion miles. Your slight deviation from course at the beginning is going to be a huge difference at the end, right? So especially at the beginning, being so picky with everything you're doing and like really calling out the disappointments, the needs, the opportunities is going to determine your course.
So that's what made her so damn attractive at the beginning, was she was so clear about needs and expectations that it set the trajectory perfectly. So then when you had to make the decision to marry her, it was fairly easy decision because it had already been laid out way back at the beginning.
I knew we were going towards it somewhere. I saw the potential. I knew we were going the right direction. I knew that we were building momentum, direction, and target. We're aiming at the same thing. We're not going against each other, and we're picking up speed, not slowing down. That was the thing, right? That was a decision to make.
I get asked all the time, what is my attachment style? What is my attachment style? What is my attachment style? So I have finally launched the attachment assessment. This is not a short quiz that just spits out an answer after 3 seconds. This is a thorough, in-depth, science-backed assessment. Check it out on my website, adamlanesmith.com, and learn your attachment style, the severity of what you're dealing with, and some next steps you can take right now to build very secure attachment. You had a previous failed marriage. So a lot of people would look at that and say, I'm more afraid of marriage now. What was it that led you to believe marriage was still good with her, that it would be amazing with her?
Well, because all the 3 things that I just listed were absent in my previous marriage. We were doing different things. We were sometimes rarely accelerating, oftentimes decelerating, and many times just counteracting each other. That was just a mess.
Got it.
Right? Not from the perspective of necessarily like even, like logistics, because it was functional, but like spiritually it was a mess.
So she made it easy for you by having expectations, by having needs, and by voicing them.
Look, here's my message to all the dudes out there, and by consequence to all the women. You don't have a lot of time. You don't. Right? Realistically, your most productive years probably for building a family, starting a family is between 25 and 35. Right? Probably that's kind of the golden time to really start a family, so that you can build yourself to your full potential by the time you're 60. Right? So you can have an amazing family, have an amazing career, have an amazing life, have amazing health. That takes a lot of time. So if you wait, I'm turning 35 this year. This is actually a great piece of advice that my friend Mikhail told me. He says, you're not young anymore, bro. You think you got time? You don't. What is it that you'd be waiting for? And that really turned on the light bulb. And I'm like, there's nothing to wait for. You're going. This is a gift. This is truly a gift from God. Shut up and take it.
I love this. So other factor for the women at home that are tracking, he was a man who had a plan and a vision. He actually wanted something out of life instead of, I'm going to have a bunch of fun and avoid responsibility. That was a big factor here. So he had to have friends he could speak to personally and get connection from, and advice. And he had to have a long-term vision he actually wanted to achieve. And that included family. That included marriage and love. Both of those have to be there. You can't build that for him. He has to have that.
And then you got to hold him to it, right? And that's what Annalise did. She actually held me to that. She pulled her end of the bargain. But there was also a timeline. I didn't,
Timelines are so crucial.
so important.
Women are so afraid to have timelines.
Yep.
Tell me more about this.
Basically, from the beginning, we said, okay, well, how long are we gonna, date before we get married? And, we said, around a year, give or take. So there was a couple of things that kind of happened in the meantime. There was like some illnesses in our close circle that kind of took us away. There was some work disasters. There were some personal disasters. And so we met in January, started dating in February. And by the time that about, October, November hit, I'm like, well, that's the end of my test ride. You got to bring the car back to the dealership or they're going to call the cops.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you're either going to have to decide to buy it or not.
The deadline is crucial. When women come to me and they don't know on a relationship if it's going to work or not, I say, what is your deadline? Well, I don't know. Well, how long can you give him? Well, I'm not sure. What that means is you are giving him 60 years.
That to me was the most important part, because I think if there was a little bit more time, I would have been sorely tempted to kind of push that off because I was busy. I wasn't in the right headspace. This was Q4. Yep. I proposed in December, and I don't know for anybody who knows, because we're in marketing and content, like that is the worst time. We were pumping 16 hours. Yeah. I gave up every basic necessity. Like it was just the most inopportune time, but the time was over, right? Nobody cared. And I told myself I shouldn't either, that this is not optimal. You just have to go and do things. Right. And that's an element this is a very important part. You have to have faith in yourself and in the other person that even if things aren't perfect, you'll figure them out.
And a lot of that's vasopressin, because vasopressin proves that you can have faith in them. So she built vasopressin with you. So your brain said, no, I trust her.
Yeah, that was it. Right?
That was key.
We can figure it out.
100%. Okay. You are married now. You've been married for four days. 4 days. You're still in love?
Yes.
Okay. I hope so. But the idea is that the avoidant man gets married and the next day he tries to jump out the window. Now that you are married, what is your nervous system doing with her? Just what are you feeling with her? How are you doing in the marriage so far?
If I can drag myself out of my 12 to 14 hours of work,
yes.
I'm really going to start shooting people who are taking me. This is how I feel. I'm going to start shooting people who are taking me away from my family. So that is flipped. This is the most interesting thing that has happened. Before, it was like, hey, I'm sacrificing my time, at work with goals to spend time with you. Now I'm like, I'm going to kill people who take me away from this.
I love this.
I don't know what happened, but it did.
I remembered a conversation with you maybe a couple months ago. I said, what do you think is going to change for you with marriage? And you said, that's it. I'm all in. There is no going back. There's no more ifs. That is now my trajectory. If this happens, this is what's going to happen. And your brain
I made myself
that
promise, and I'm actually reveling in that promise.
I love that.
Because that was a big thing, because that for me was a be-all and end-all. I actually told this to Annalise recently, just like as we were kind of getting ready for the wedding, and it was getting crazy. I said, getting to the wedding is my sprint. I don't care. Like, I don't care if I lose limbs on the way. You just have to make it to the finish line, that type of thing. Okay. But as soon as the wedding happens, that is your marathon. That is where you have to be strategic, committed, intelligent, selective, exclusive, all of those things, because the second that you seal the deal, that's it. That's when you launch your spaceship. And everything, like the very beginning, is so, so crucially important. So I'm not personally happy with a lot of things I'm doing in the first 4 days, because I feel like I'm actually adding, mistakes to my course chart. Because I'm like, shit, didn't really work on that. But
okay, yeah. So you're beginning the marriage now. Previously, things that worked out were having conversations with her, clarifying expectations, clarifying goals, and then going to other men and being able to say, hey, here's what my head's doing. Help me put it on straight.
No, holding me accountable.
Holding you accountable.
Holding me accountable. That made a big difference.
Yep, agreed. Okay, agreed. So those were two factors that really worked before. Was there a third factor you can think of?
So we had a very interesting dynamic play out.
Okay.
Now, ironically, this is a dynamic that ended up in your marriage course, the one that just launched.
Yes.
Just fantastic. It's actually part of the reason why we wrote it that way.
Correct, yes.
I'm used to running a business. I'm used to, so my background is business, right? So I was in consulting, then I was an executive. Martial arts. So I used to be a sensei. I have a 3rd degree black belt. I used to train. I used to teach. And frankly, discipline and hierarchy are very important to me.
Mhm.
Maybe they're not to somebody else, but they're important to me. And we fell into an excellent pattern, right? And the pattern was that I would figure out the strategic vision with consultation, but without arguments. Ultimately, I kind of fell on me to figure out what is the high level strategy for us to get to our goal,
Mm.
but the tactics, Annalise did.
Oh, so the man provided larger term vision.
Yep.
The woman provided actual implementation.
A lot of the implementation and guidance. Because like obviously not everything she did, but she said, hey, we need X, we need Y, we
Yeah.
need this, we need this. And I provide her the resources to build.
So this is exactly what we included in the marriage course: the CEO model and the COO model.
Okay, what's
right?
that? For the guys back home,
for the
girls,
people at home, yeah. And this was a model that really resonated with you and does for most of my avoidant clients. The man functions as the chief executive officer, providing vision, leading from the front, dealing with urgency, dealing with challenges, troubleshooting endlessly at the front. The woman is not the assistant. She is the co-executive chief operations officer. She runs the entire industry. She's maintaining it. She's implementing harmony and making sure everything stays status quo.
Yes. And I'm going to tell you this one core thing about that relationship, because whenever I had a good operator underneath me,
Mhm.
there's one thing that they did that made them or broke them. And the thing that they did is that they brought forward issues without an emotional charge.
Yes.
That was the key.
Not you have failed me and I'm pissed off about it, or you're doing this wrong. But hey, there's a challenge in our system. We need to tackle it together. What can we do? Here's the challenges.
Houston,
Here's
we
what I'm
have a
thinking.
problem.
Houston, we have a problem. So she's good at doing that.
She's absolutely been doing that. That was very attractive. Because can you imagine this? We're going through, hours and hours of meetings. There's like big decisions to be made. And you're hyped up. Your emotional state is hyped up. And you're in the adrenaline, you're in testosterone, you're running with this, you're working with a lot of men, there's a lot of fast-paced energy, and you're in that flow. And if somebody steps in, and let's say your woman steps in, and she goes, well, if only you were paying attention to me, you'd love me and do this, and you're just like, for fuck's sake, are you kidding? Like, can you imagine how much of like just a pivot that is for your mind? But she comes in and goes, hey, Andrey, so I need you to do a couple of things. It doesn't have to be now, but we need to get this done. Otherwise, this is going to happen.
Mhm.
You go, okay, I can work with this. It doesn't break my flow.
100%. My wife, same. We got 5 kids. We run a business. We run all, everything. I need her to be bringing those things to me like that. And she says, hey, I get a text. I'm just going to flag this for you really quick. Here's this concern. It's not a fire yet, but we definitely need to handle it. Here's what I think we could do if you want to do it that way. What are your thoughts? And I go, huh. And I chew on it for a little while, and then I sit her down that night and say, okay, here's what I think. Here's what we can do. Thanks for bringing this to me.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. And we move forward. We advance.
Yes. Now, that's not to say that the guy should just completely, turn away from the ship and just face forward, never look back.
Right.
But you kind of have to both watch each other. That's really the core there, because there was one time, it's been probably about a year ago, when we're trying to figure out how to like set up her life and whatnot. And you got to understand your seasons. You got to understand there's going to be setting up, there's going to be streamlining, there's going to be the long run, there's going to be transformation. So have the big picture, right? If you guys are in the setting up stage, assume you guys are going to make a lot of mistakes. Fast pivots, experiment, try it out, change.
And that's why I have the premarital section in the course for exactly how to set that up at the beginning. Yes.
Like, don't worry about it. Like, nothing is locked in. Make it work. That's why the first couple of months are so important. It's actually, that course is really important too for a lot of people who are already married, because just because you already got married on paper, it doesn't mean you can't restart your marriage.
Yeah.
You can restart your marriage at any point.
100%.
Right? That's a core takeaway here. You just have to cut the crap and implement properly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that is such an important model, because here's the thing. If you approach it back with your principles, with the compassion, the commitment, the loyalty, right, shared vision, you can retarget and you can reset course towards the right star now without losing really anything anymore. You're not losing any more time.
Correct.
Right? So you reset. And there was a time when Annalise came to me and she said, I've been feeling frustrated. And I was like, yeah, I could see that, because, just not been getting quality time. I'm not getting the physical connection. I'm not getting the time present with you at all. And it's hurting me. And I go, noted. And then I took my schedule and I put in 1 hour blocks, and we kind of move those blocks as needed during the day, sometimes during the day, sometimes during the evening. And that's my non-negotiable. Just as I have a non-negotiable time with my daughter, throw away my phone. And like maybe there's been like 2 times that I've, with Annalise's permission, used those blocks for something else.
Yep.
Huge difference.
I had the same thing last summer. My wife came to me. I've been kind of frustrated lately. I was like, okay, tell me about that. And we talked about this before. And it was okay. I got to put blocks in my schedule. I got to talk to my team. I got to scale back a little bit and spend more time with you.
Yeah. And that was it.
Great.
It was a simple conversation. There wasn't anything complicated. There wasn't anything bad there. It was very, very to the point. And like I go, okay, I can fix that.
100%. So to the women at home who are listening, avoidant men, if they're ethically avoidant, if they have a vision, and if they have good men in their life to go to and get accountability and plans from, that's mandatory. Then those men will be seeking women who have boundaries, who have expectations, who have ethics, and who are living fully themselves and actually being joyful in their life.
That would really help.
Okay.
Number one. But most importantly, understand what you need. That is such an important component. Another thing you talk about in the marriage course, right? Your needs.
Yes.
Understand what your needs are. And if you can understand what your needs are, assume it's almost like currency. Like to operate, you, as I say, if we were a country, you'd need, coal and wheat and, meat and potatoes and vodka. And I guess
very Russian.
Yes,
very Russian.
I guess I culturally appropriated that.
I heard
and
that.
that's the 5 things that you need in order to prosper as a country.
Okay.
If you don't trade for those, you won't have them, right? You need to make sure that you know exactly what you need, how much of it to survive, to thrive, and, just to like be okay. Ideally, you kind of have an understanding of the 3 levels, the minimum, but like the nice to have at least.
Right.
And then position it, because you and your partner, your husband or your future husband are going to be a system, and you better be generating excessive wealth. Well, what the heck are you doing? That's
very true. You told me a lot and taught me a lot about social currency with your finance background. It's an amazing model. But yes, in the relationship structure, we would say it needs to be a sustainable system, almost like an organism. Your marriage is an organism that needs to stay alive, and both of you have to be contributing and fulfilled also yourselves in that, or the organism dies. Your marriage will die if you don't feed it. Are you guys
going to be an apex family? Or are you just going to get eaten?
Ooh, apex family.
Apex family. Let's coin this term.
This is a very avoidant mentality, but yes, I think it's awesome at the same time. I'm not, do you want to get married? No. Well, do you want to build an apex family? Yes. I think this is good. Okay, we're building apex families.
Coin this term right now.
Okay,
apex families. If you want to marry your avoidant man, show up and say, I think you can be a man who builds an apex family, keyword, with me.
Ooh.
With me, not with somebody else.
Sir, I would like to build an apex family with you. There is the female equivalent of proposing marriage. There we go, right there.
There you go, right? And that just sparks all the right connections.
Love it, love it, love it. Any last thoughts you would like to share with the women at home who've been listening to this? Maybe they're a little concerned because they didn't set up things at the beginning. The course will show you how to correct that, by the way, if you need that help. Or any of them who are a little bit skeptical that, okay, these 2 guys on this podcast like women like this, but does my man like women like this? What would you say to these women who are a little concerned?
What do you have to lose? Ultimately, what do you have to lose, right? You're with a man, are you going to go and, let him be a passive, weak, low testosterone man? Or are you going to try to see if you guys can align on that vision of like going to the stars, really? The worst thing you can do is ask. The best thing you can do is ask. Why is it the worst thing? Is because it's going to break the status quo. Right? You guys can stop living your little lie fantasy, and you can finally know. And you can stop settling for less and having the little micro betrayals and micro disappointments and building a life of misery together. Because the alternative is that. You're going to build a life of misery, right? Or you can not.
Right.
Right? And the third option is there. You can just not do that.
I will say this, a woman who does not bring concerns, does not bring challenges, doesn't have boundaries, expectations, you are 100% replaceable because anyone can offer what you're offering.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that they can't offer is you, the fullness of you, your expectations, your desires, your goals, who you are as a person. That's the only thing that's not replaceable.
Yep.
So if you're not being you, then you're not offering anything.
Here's the ultimate answer, right? If there's a simple answer to what brings a happy marriage, it's very, 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 very basically this. It always starts with the woman. It is actually up to the woman to have that broader potential. And I know this is contradictory to a lot of red pill bullshit out there, but in reality, the thing that attracted me to Annalise was her potential. And the fact that she guarded it so carefully and preserved it and really focused on just, protecting it and presenting it at the right time. This is what you want. Right. So for all the women who are out there waiting for their man to man up and step up, it's like, well, are you enticing him? What are you offering? Are you just being the blank person? Well, we're not going to do anything about that. That's not attractive to us. Why would I invest into turning you into you? If you don't have that, if you're a blank slate, then you're nothing. Yeah. So that hurts, but it's true. So it's never too late to turn that around.
Right.
Like it's never too late to say, you know what? I've not been living the perfect life. I have not been living the perfect life. When I met Adam, I started working. It took me freaking 3 years to get to the point I got married. 3.5. So it's not an immediate thing and it has to start somewhere. But this desire to say, you know what? If you're in a bad relationship, you say, I'd much rather lose you than lose myself. Mm-hmm. If you're in a good relationship, you say, you know what? It's time for me to step forward. If you are in a questionable relationship, say, let's find out if there is something here. Yeah. Like you gotta spark.
100%. I agree with that. I think the worst thing a woman can do is self-abandon in her relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And then offer the man basically nothing. And then he's going to sit there and say, well, why would I ever commit to someone who doesn't even trust themselves?
Yeah. Well, that's it, right? If you cannot offer that fire, that vision, the passion, you have no sexual energy.
Yeah.
Number one.
None.
Right? You're going to be a horrible mother. Number two. Right? And you're going to be a horrible wife because you're going to get resentful for your husband not making you feel perfect. Number three. Sorry.
It's true.
To be said bluntly and avoidantly, that is why avoidant men do not marry their partners, is because they do not pass those 3 tests and they spark that fear. Right? And if you spark that fear, we're simply not going to do it. Right? But if you can say, hey, this is who I am, this is my time, this is my value, these are my needs that we can bond over, and I'm ready for us to build a shared vision, and you can be the captain of the ship, and I'll be your second in command, a little Bonnie and Clyde moment. That is hot, attractive, exciting, sexy, motivating, and that will make us want to build.
I love this.
But until you entice us, we're just not going to come out of our shell, because why would we?
I love this. Andrey, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much for being this open and just direct.
Sure.
It's been great. Everybody at home, I'm curious. Do you agree or disagree? I would love to hear from you in the comment sections. Agree or disagree? Which parts of this conversation were exciting to you? Which parts were challenging? Which parts do you think I or Andrey are full of crap? Let us know, because this is the beginning of the conversation. Like Andrey said, the word no starts the conversation. So let's start the conversation in the comment section. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and come back to the next episode. In the meantime, I'm Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist. You can find me on adamlanesmith.com, where I have my new marriage course that will walk you through building or rebuilding your relationship to be everything we just talked about here. Andrey, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Adam. Let's do this.